Technically, we're going live, but we got a few more minutes. I'm going live early this morning. Chris and I are here with Pippin, who's one of our kittens who came inside. She snuck in the office just now. All right, I'll probably be live for about 1 hour. Y voy cuando puedo. O si quieres esperar, porque aún no estoy despertado, ¿verdad? Sí, después los restos es lo que yo mezclo con los huevos estrellados. Ok, haz más café si quieres. What's up, folks? How's everybody doing this morning? Meow. What's up? Come here. Come on. You can come here. I've got Pippin in the office this morning. She's it's been raining nonstop for like I think since Friday night. So it rained all night Friday night, all night Saturday night, and a little bit on Thursday night. And the cats, like Pippin here, have been inside for like cooped up for 3 days. And she went out this morning for a little bit. It's still raining a little bit this morning. It's pretty much trickled off now, but she ran out this morning and was just sitting on top of the chicken coop for like 3 hours, getting a little wet. But she did not want to be inside, so I've got Pippin now. She snuck into the office. Yeah, you've been a good girl. And Chris was just in here. We were talking about breakfast and stuff. So we're gonna have French toast and scrambled eggs this morning here in a bit. But I got a stream to do. So good morning, everybody. I'm a little early. I usually go live at 8. But I said, what the hell? I'm sitting here. I got nothing to do but a cat. What's up, Chris? Nobody else is in here? Okay, perfect. Yes, please. That would be nice. Oh, there's the alarm. My 10-minute warning. It is a beautifully cool morning here where we live on the homestead. You're a good girl. Yes, you are, Pippin. You want to say one more time? Put the camera on you one more time because you're a pretty girl. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I gotta get to work. You can totally stay here though. So good morning, everybody. Hopefully you're doing well today. We got a lot of ground to cover today. We had a lot of stuff happening in the tabletop space this week. We've got Paizo and their like stretch of home runs that they've been hitting all week. We've got Ryan Dancey predicting that Wizards of the Coast will join the ORC Alliance, which is very interesting. We got the Broken Weave project that was announced, which is melding the SRD 5.1, which is now in the open, with their new upcoming C7D20 system. Don't chew on my cables, honey. I've been doing some research on new tabletop games, and we're also going to talk about the Dungeon Dudes and their response, which I did a video, I pre-recorded a video that was published this morning at like 6 a.m. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think the video I put out this morning was pretty in depth about that, so we can go watch that at your leisure. That was the 6 a.m. release for today. So let's see here. Get that closed down. Syrian says, "Love the Cthulhu Elements Pathfinder, doing great. Thanks for asking." You're welcome. Thanks for being here. So this week, I think to go in reverse for me, because the video was published this morning. I think the Dungeon Dudes had a really great video. I highly recommend you go watch it. It's called Our Thoughts on the OGL Aftermath, and again, the video that was out this morning you can watch. But it's a 20-minute walkthrough of their basic life over the past week or two. So it goes over the brief overview of events, then explaining the OGL and SRD, talking about Creative Commons, what it all means, their personal opinions on the matter, a message to Wizards of the Coast, and then a message to their community. So it's a very good listen if you haven't already done so. Um, but I think it sums up. I think from here on forward, like them, I think you're going to start to see a lot less. I've already done a lot less this week regarding the OGL stuff because it's over and done with. I mean, there are a few naysayers in the community, a few cynics who are sitting there going, "Oh, it's not over. We won the battle, but not the war. Be vigilant. Never let them, never stop. Always attack. Burn them to the ground." But I think the people who want to see Wizards of the Coast actually burned to the ground are pretty few and far between at the moment. I think most people, all the major media outlets and everyone else, has said, "Hey, you know what? They stepped away. Let's try to mend these wounds now and see where we can go from here." So I think that's a good attitude to have. I don't trust their management at all, Wizards of the Coast, but just because I don't trust the management doesn't mean I lost my love for Dungeons and Dragons. So that's a really good video from these guys. Why is it blurred when I'm tabbed out away from that? That's very interesting. Huh. Um. Anyway, go watch this. Next up is the Broken Weave project announced from the Warhammer RPG maker Cubicle 7. I covered this earlier in the week, and I thought this was a fascinating look at one of the first games that's coming out around the SRD 5.1 being in the wild now. Because there are so many people who were already working on 5th edition products, myself included, who immediately stopped, and some people were waiting to see, and then people like myself were like, yeah, hell no, we ain't waiting. We're just going to strip the OGL out. And it looks like Cubicle 7 was a wait and see approach, and once they saw a resolution of types, they were able to move forward with their project. Um, so this is one of the first projects that's being launched in the new era, where the 5th edition rules are completely out in the open now in Creative Commons. And it's I think for me it's most interesting not because of the setting or anything like that or the rules, because I don't really give a shit about rules. I mean, rules are rules. It doesn't matter, everybody. It's like rule sets are rule sets. Do you want to go over here, sweetie? No, you're just turning over in my lap. Rule sets are rule sets. You can tweak the rules. You can break the rules. Rules are nothing more than something to help guide the gameplay. And you can make up your own. You can have, um, whatever rules you want to use. The setting is always going to be the most important thing for me. And the story. Is there a good story there that could be told? Um, Sorry for the slurping on my tea there. um, So to see this project, I think for me it's most interesting because it shows what the path forward is going to look like for a lot of people. Because you gotta consider, no matter what Wizards of the Coast does with 1D&D, it's not out yet, so people are still using 5th edition, and the current controversy around the OGL has made it so that 5th edition is forever branded right now, or at least maybe not forever branded, but definitely branded right now as why would we change? Why would we even want to consider 1D&D, 6th edition D&D when you guys showed your hand? Like, no, we're just going to stick with 5th. And I think this is a personal prediction. I don't think very many companies or very many content creators, very many third-party publishers are going to be creating anything for 6th edition. I think that they have completely nailed that coffin shut. Um, and some people are like, that's what they wanted in the first place. I don't think that that's true. I think that they thought they had a big enough market share that they could squeeze their fist and get away with it like they did with Magic the Gathering. Only this community is much more than just D&D. Like there's so many other tabletop games out there. When it comes to Magic the Gathering, there's actually not that many other, fantasy type card games out there. There are some. I know somebody's going to shoot me for that comment back, but there's 500. It's not tabletop. Like it's not the same thing. It's a much lesser target audience, much less of market share, and so on and so forth. So there wasn't the outcry that there was with uh, the OGL scandal. In any case, there are a lot of people who were already producing. Are you moving over to the chair, sweetie? All right. So she just moved over to her chair, which is actually the other office chair. So, yay, I can face the camera now instead of sitting at that weird angle. Um, there are so many companies that were already producing 5th edition stuff. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of people producing 5th edition stuff because it's out there, it's available. It's what people have been using for 6, 7, whatever many years now. I think we'll see another, at the very least, another couple of years, I would imagine, of 5th edition stuff coming out, especially from companies that were already a year into a project, 2 years into a project, like what we're seeing here with Broken Weave. So it's an interesting concept. The company who's doing it obviously is Cubicle 7, who did Doctor Who, role-playing game Uncharted Journeys, and the Warhammer Fantasy RPG. Their core rulebook is coming later this year, which is combining the SRD's foundational mechanics with um, fifth edition compatible books, right, that they've done before. It's called a post-apocalyptic tragic fantasy setting compatible with both Core 5e and C7D20, and that's about it. No one really knows anything about this project yet, other than that brief snippet. So I don't know. Could be good, could be bad. There's not enough information out there on it for me to be interested one way or the other. But I do think it's an interesting case study of looking at, hey, there's new stuff coming out, and that's cool. Um, oh, you know what I forgot to bring up was the let's see here. No, that's not the right one. Roll for combat. Yeah, this video here, which I did cover earlier in the week, and I forgot to bring this up before we got going. So,
Speaking to
Ryan Dancey did a sit down with the Roll for Combat guys earlier this week, and I was going to record a video about this and like sit down and watch the whole 2 hour thing and make a video about it. That didn't happen. We've had our niece since Thursday night, so since we've been having her over for the weekend, I chose to spend time with my family instead of doing more D&D video stuff. But I did make a short video on this, just talking about the portion where Ryan Dancey predicts that he thinks Wizards of the Coast is going to join the ORC Alliance. He sees that as the only path forward for them because, as we just talked about a minute ago, at the moment, no one is going to um, put money into 6th edition. No one wants to touch 1D&D. It's pretty much a radioactive piece of stuff right now for anybody that has any love for tabletop. Because of Wizards of the Coast. Not because D&D's bad or anything like that, but because of the taste in their mouths right now. There are only a few loyalists who are left. And I think that he could be onto something. I don't think they'll join. It's just my own personal thoughts on the matter. I don't think they'll join right away. I think that Wizards of the Coast is going to wait for the first draft of that language to come out in February because they were originally going to make the announcement of the survey results on February 17th. So they have a pretty broad runway from what they were talking about before in the sense that they weren't even going to talk about the results until the 17th. So I don't think they're in a hurry at this point. I think they're waiting to see what that language is going to look like along with the rest of us. And I think they may make a decision at that point. If they see that the language is going to allow them to operate within the ORC Alliance in a way that maintains their profitability while also allowing them to get back in the good graces of the community, that's going to be a win-win for them. And I think, as Ryan said in the video, the poignant sticking point is going to be the fact that even the OGL, the original OGL, doesn't have any provisions in it for software and the evolution of software. And that's apparently a major point for them, as we saw from the 1.1 and 1.2 language that they tried to shove down everybody's throats. Their whole thing was, this is only about tabletop. The OGL was never meant to also allow people to go do video games and movies and miniatures and blah blah blah. We want 25% of everything, you motherfuckers. We want to get rich off of you. Um, and they have since completely backed away from all of that. But I think Ryan's onto something though, because if they can see a path forward where they can work with the ORC to get some sort of a software um, clause in there, and it gets them back in the good graces and everything else, I think that we could see them join the ORC. But I don't think it'll happen until after the first draft of the language is out. I just don't see that happening. Um, there's too much, but I gotta remember when I tab at it. For some reason I probably have a setting that I forgot to tweak somewhere in it because it's making that fuzzy when I tab away from YouTube videos. Um, anyway, watch that video if you haven't already. It's up on my YouTube channel as well. And the big thing for me this week was Pathfinder and Paizo. Starfinder to a lesser degree, but Paizo is hitting this out of the park right now. Okay. Um, a lot of this is because the ORC Alliance, and we have 1,500 plus companies had joined as of like what 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. We're involved in that to a small degree in the Discord channel, waiting to see what that language is going to look like, hoping it's going to be something that we can get on board with. We don't need it though. Like we're happy to completely continue publishing our book and future books without any license. We don't need a license. It's very easy to have a clause in there that says compatible with any D20 system. Literally, I can have that's literally all I need is for there to, just remind people that it's compatible with any D20 system, but really ours is system agnostic. So it's just lore. You can adapt that to any setting you want and just play by whatever rules you like. And I think that's something that way too many people get stuck on the rule sets and are like, "Oh, I love Castles and Crucibles, and I'm a fifth edition, and I'm second edition, and I'm Pathfinder first edition, and I'm Pathfinder second edition, and I'm Core, and I'm Fudge, and I'm and my version's better than your version." It's all just a backdrop. The setting is the only thing that's important. So just modify the setting to whatever rule set you want. Go from there. But I am interested in the ORC because again, it's about being able to find potential business partners and work within a larger community, which ultimately results in more sales than you would be doing if you were on your own. So I'm interested in hopefully we see the ORC language um, come out in a way that's fair for everybody, which I'm confident that it will. But because of all of this, Paizo is, the one footing the legal bill for the creation of the documents, which is no significant, I mean, it's no insignificant thing. The legal costs to put something together like this they'll range from, it could be as little as $15,000 and as much as $50,000 to put all this together. It just depends on how many billable hours that law firm is going to get in terms of drafting all the documents, consultations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have formed companies for as little as, in terms of using a lawyer for bigger LLCs, I've done it for as little as $7,500 in terms of putting together a bigger LLC with all the framework that you need to support multiple partners and everything else. And then, I mean, if it's just something where it's just you and another person or two, like what my brother and I have with my wife, that's something that you can do on your own because it's just three people who know each other really, really well. But you still need a legal framework, so you can get a lawyer to look over your documentation for a couple $100, and you can either do all the Secretary of State stuff yourself or have somebody else do it for you. But it's you can spin up a company really cheaply, but to put together a legal framework that's going to last for it forever with hundreds and potentially thousands of business partners and people involved, that needs to be a just airtight, watertight legal document that requires time and legal expertise to put together. So that's not going to be something that's cheap. So Paizo footing the bill for that has been impressive enough. It doesn't hurt that they have this system that a lot of people love. Now, I don't know anything about Pathfinder. I've only ever played the Owlcat games. Owlbear. I always say that. The Owlcat games. And I like those games. They're a lot of fun. But it's just because I like CRPGs. Their fantasy setting is easy enough to get into. Um, But when I started looking into other systems, Starfinder was what captured my attention initially, and I'm hip deep in the discovering Starfinder system, and I like that. I'm having a lot of fun with that. Um, I don't need to go beyond all this stuff. However, and I had no plans on purchasing any Pathfinder stuff at all because I don't have the time. I'm doing Pathfinder right now. That's going to take me until the end of February at least to get through the core rulebook. Um, and in the back of my mind, I was like, they've had a couple of free book giveaways where I went and got something that's in the Pathfinder world, but it wasn't high on my priority. But then they dropped this the other day. I think it was Friday, Thursday, it says. The Humble Bundle and them partnered up and did this just ridiculous deal where you get 28 books for as little as $25. You can give more if you want. I'll be honest, I had never created a Humble Bundle account before. I've never used them. I know of them. I've looked at many deals for them, but just for many, many years, Chris and I were on the road traveling. And then once we moved to Mexico City for the 4 years, almost 5 years that we were there, I was just doing game dev, running a game studio, running the MMORPG studio, was the CEO of that and the creative director, managing 20 people. I was busy for several years and didn't have time to ever take advantage of any of the Humble Bundle stuff. I'm in a position now where I have time to take advantage of that because I'm just doing content creation here on YouTube along with our tabletop stuff and our little point and click adventure game and the book series. So it's a much smaller thing because there's only three of us and occasionally contracting out. Um, so since content creation is my day job now, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, super chats, stickers, memberships, the Patreon page, all those good things to support. Um, this popped up and I went, I can't pass that up. So I went and got all these books, 28 books in PDF format, which now means that I have to make a decision now. Like, there's only so many hours in the day. Um, so it's like, I just need to finish my Starfinder series. But I already talked to my brother, and it's like, Chris has no desire to do any sort of fantasy, or excuse me, science fiction stuff. So if Chris would want to continue doing tabletop with us once a week or something, we might just end up switching over to Pathfinder, do Pathfinder first. I don't know yet, because we'd still like to do some Starfinder. My brother and I would with some of his friends. Anyway, I'm rambling here. The point is, I picked up this package and now I have all these books at my disposal, and it's an over freaking whelming amount of material to go through. If you have not taken advantage of this yet, and you're on the fence about it and you don't own the books, it's 25 bucks. It's like the core rule book. It's all these different things, adventure packs and all these different things that you can buy, um, that just there's no reason not to. I just was blown away by it, to be honest with you. I do have a link here. I'm in dark mode, so I can't necessarily see all the links they need to be here. Hang on, I'm switching real quick. I gotta be able to see the link. Yeah, here it is right here. Go back into dark mode. Someone was telling me, and I don't have Foundry VTT. This right here, they even gave you a Foundry VTT module. Oh, it's not going to open that the way I wanted it to. Never mind. Which I guess some people are saying is worth way more than the 25 bucks you can spend to get all these books. Now, I don't use Foundry VTT. I use Fantasy Grounds, but it's the same thing over there. Like, you'll spend a chunk of change. I mean, 35 bucks and up to 50, but whatever. It's a chunk of change to get the modules. For any of these VTT programs. So the fact that they're giving this away as well. Someone was saying, and I don't know if this is true, but someone said on my YouTube channel that the Adventure Path Abomination Vaults is so big. He's like, that's a full year's worth of content. Let's go. Actually, let's look this up. Abomination Vaults Pathfinder. It's an adventure path, and there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 different books in it. Okay. So it's a chunk of stuff, and apparently someone was saying it's like I guess this is true. I don't know if it's true, but someone was saying it's like a year's worth of content, just that alone, and that's part of the bundle here. But Secrets of Magic, Game Mastery Guide, Pawn Collection for Abomination Vaults, Pawn Collection, the Society Intro, Year of Boundless Wonder, Flip Map for Arcane Library, Traps and Treasures Pawn Collection, A Fistful of Flowers Adventure, the Bestiary 2 Lost Omens Character Guide, Lost Omens Ancestry Guide. I got the Lost Omens book like a couple weeks ago in the freebie they've got. Another adventure called Troubles in Otari, flip map for that. I mean, there's just so much stuff here, including the second edition core rulebook and the second edition bestiary, as well as the beginner box. Just so much stuff was in that pack. And so 25 bucks sold, easy, easy, easy sale. Um, Very happy to support them in this time. And then yesterday they dropped this. And because I'm in the middle of the Starfinder R&D session right now, I was like, "Oh, this sounds really good," but I didn't buy it, and I'll tell you why. Um, I have the core rulebook right now that I'm going through, and there's also the archives of Nethys, I think is what it's called. So I've just been doing R&D on Starfinder right now. I've not made any purchases yet because I'm waiting for my group to confirm that they're available to start in March. I've got confirmation from two people, my brother and Lance, aka Gila, from our Discord. And my brother's waiting on a couple of his best friends that we've played with. They were part of our play testing for our point and click. Excuse me, for our well, actually they play tested the point and click as well, but they were part of the play test group for our adventure module that came out, the first module in our tabletop campaign. They were part of the playtest group that live streamed back in August of 2021. We've played games with them for years. My brother and I played Lord of the Rings Online with them, Star Wars: The Old Republic together. We've played a lot of stuff over the years with those two guys, and we're waiting to find out if they have time to get involved. I think one of them said he could be starting in mid-February. We're waiting for confirmation of the other, and just to see how all this plans out. Once they decide that they're going to do that, the idea is that we're gonna. I think it's the We're No Heroes or something like it. It's the fly free or die adventure path. There's the first module, which is levels 1 to 4. It'd be like a 6 week adventure, like 6 sessions, we think, 6 to 8 sessions to play that adventure pack. And we're thinking about maybe starting that sometime in March if that's feasible. And whenever that happens, whenever we confirm all that is when I'll need to go purchase like the core rule book and that adventure path and all the stuff for Fantasy Grounds. And it's like $80 worth of stuff as it is currently priced. Um, Now I could go get a discount, slight discount, by picking up this during the sale for 25% off the core rule book. But I'm still waiting to see because it's like if they decide that they don't want to do it, I now own all the Pathfinder stuff, and it would be just as easy to if it's just going to be my brother and Lance. I don't think I don't think they care either way whether we do Starfinder or Pathfinder. So, and especially if Chris would want to get involved. So I'm up in the air at this point. But I will say this: if they do a Starfinder bundle on Humble Bundle, not Humble Bumble, if they do a Starfinder pack on Humble Bundle, I will definitely purchase that. But I haven't made any purchases with the discount right now. Although I did get the freebie that they launched here, which is the Starfinder Pact Worlds. So my Discovering Pathfinder series, I've been going through the core rulebook, and I now own this one as well, um, which is gonna I'll be adding to this as I read through and continue my Discovering Starfinder series. I guess it'll last longer than just the core rulebook now, so it's going to be probably several months worth of content out of those two alone, and then who knows? I may get into doing more Starfinder stuff. I personally would like to do Starfinder more than Pathfinder, only because I feel like I've done so much fantasy in my life that it's not, it's easy for me to go to fantasy because it's my background. I would love to do science fiction, so we'll see. Mark Hyde says Paizo and HP did one last year, or something like that. I got those are amazing deals that include some Starfinder stuff, BB and core books, Bats and Trust. Yeah, I've heard there's been some combo deals. I'm hoping they'll put out a straight up Starfinder pack. That would be more ideal for me. But I realize that Pathfinder is their best seller, and that's the one that's going to get them the most sales. Someone said, it might even be in the comments here. Dun, dun, dun. I'm scrolling down because I could. Yeah, this was. How do I? By the way, I'm turning the dark mode off just a minute because I wanted to see something. It's really horrific when it's not in dark mode. It's so bright. They said that it's already sold over 6,000 copies. How do you see that? Does it show you? Is that right? Hold on. That number looks completely different than what I saw over here. Someone was saying over here something around 6,000. I'm trying to find where I just scrolled past it a minute ago. So someone is saying, am I reading the Humble Bundle page correctly? It's been live for just over 3 hours and has 5,700 sold. Then someone said over 6,000. But then I go look at it, it says over 45,000 have. And is that correct? Is that how you read this on Humble Bundle? If someone knows Humble Bundle better than I do, feel free to chime in. Because if that's true and they've sold, if that number is correct, then they've sold over 45,000 copies of this book bundle since it went live on Thursday. That's insane. Holy shit. Well, I know my video, I think there's been at least 20 sales off of the video that I did. I'd have to go back and look through the comments, but I'm pretty sure at least 20 people have made purchases based off of just my video alone. And I'm a small fish in the terms of the YouTube community. Like, you know, my videos get a few thousand views, at most. Like, I think the average for me on a good video is going to be like 3,500 to 5,000 views. That's pretty good for my channel where it is right now. Occasionally I'll get videos that do 10 to 15,000, but most of them are right around like that 3,500 range for a video that does well. I'd say the average is probably 500 to 1,000 on my channel, for where I'm at and growth wise and everything else. So I know, imagine a video like mine gets 3,000 views and sells 20 copies. It's not quite 10%. So, I can't imagine what those people who have videos that are getting 250,000, 500,000 views. Imagine how many sales those people are driving. But if that's true, then they've sold close to, over 45,000 copies. And this is going on until I think the end of the month. Does it say the timeline here? Offer ends in 18 days, so it's at least until the mid-February, late February. Um, so they will definitely sell a chunk of those. More power to them. Mark Hyde says, I think it includes sales. Yeah, that makes sense if it includes sales different tiers. So it could be any combination of the 3 tiers that are there. They've just sold 45,000 things. Um, Crazy to think about, but good stuff. I mean, and the cool thing for me, because with the way Paizo works is you get, whenever you own a PDF, you also get that cost deducted off of what it would otherwise cost you to get that module or book over on Fantasy Grounds. So, I now have 28 books that I can get at a reasonable price over at Fantasy Grounds with Pathfinder. So it's still going to cost me a chunk of change regardless of whether we go Starfinder or Pathfinder. Whenever we make that plunge, I still got to pony up and pay for some books and stuff through Fantasy Grounds. But I think it's cool the way Foundry does that because I didn't get no discounts off of any D&D stuff. I had to pay full price for that. What's up, Honeybun Express? Impress, not Express. Sorry. Sorry, my nose is stuffy. I apologize. My niece has been here for 3 days. She had the flu, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, we'll see. It was also really cold last night, and we slept out in the living room with the windows open and everything else. So it could just be sniffles from the cold air. Fingers crossed. All right. Um, there's also something else I came across this week. I gotta see if I can look it up and remember what it was called. Um, I probably need to go look at that. No, that's not what it was. I need to go look up at that video I did. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm gonna go over here on the behind the scenes stuff and go pull this link because it had the thing that I want to go look at while I'm live. Here, there's the website. Let me get this link pulled up in the other window here. Dun, 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 dun. So I was walking through this during a video earlier this week. Best tabletop RPGs that aren't Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition for 2020. And this is just a weird list from Dicebreaker. But the one that I really liked, and I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to do a video about this week. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to go research it and then do a full video on it. It's this one right here. Yeah. This is the one I'm thinking of. Coyote and Crow. So this is a really interesting post-apocalyptic. It's basically not post-apocalyptic. Sorry, I'm thinking of a different one. This is the It's basically if the indigenous First Nations had never, if Europe had never come to North America and never settled, in North and South America, and the indigenous peoples of North and South America had continued to, you know, evolve on their own terms as a culture and etc. And it goes into, a meteor hits, I believe, if I'm not mistaken on the storyline. There's an ice age, and then they evolve out of that and become technological as well as get access to this strange source of energy, right? So it's a science fantasy setting as opposed to science fiction. I freaking love the artwork, and I guess it's put together by a group of First Nations and Indigenous people from all around um, different areas. And I'm not politically correct on all the terminology and everything else, and I'm trying. I looked at it and I like the storyline and everything else. There is some language here that I'm a little nervous about, so I'm just, I'm preliminary. I'm looking at all this stuff. It looks super interesting. I'm trying to ignore all the political things that are associated with this and just look at it from purely from the perspective of it looks like a really cool science fantasy setting. I really like the artwork. I like the descriptions. Um, my wife is Mexican with a lot of Mayan in her, so I have an affinity for learning more about, especially because I spent a lot of time in Mexico, and a lot of people have the mistaken belief that, when it comes to First Nations and Indigenous stories, everybody only wants to ever look at like North America, but the reality is that North and South America and it was all one huge collection of tribes. You've got the Aztecs and the Maya and the Inca and up into North America and beyond. And I'm fascinated with that kind of stuff because I'm around it on nearly a daily basis, and it's part of my wife's culture and heritage. So the idea of this story is something that I'm really intrigued with. And I came across this on that list, and I just was like, man, this sounds super cool. And I guess they've done some really successful stuff, with a Kickstarter recently for something. And they've got a lot of just really cool stuff. And this is kind of like I'm looking at this going, it's essentially they just built their own thing and made it, and it's their own idea. And there's some really cool stuff here. Go through Drive-Through RPG, go through Roll20, get it at Amazon. They've got a publisher page we can go take a look at. Tabletop gamers are dedicated to bringing fantastic games to your table, also raising the voices, ideas, perspectives, and imagination of indigenous creators throughout the game industry. It's owned by Connor Alexander, a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and the vast majority of writers, artists, and creatives are Native American and First Nations individuals. Is a Nebula. This is the other reason I got interested in this because it was nominated for a Nebula Award. That's a big thing in the world of fantasy and science fiction. I think it's just science fiction actually. Sci-fi fantasy tabletop role-playing game and set in a First Nations alternative future where colonization never happened. The game was created and led by an all-native team. That's some really cool stuff here. But again, I really like the artwork. I like the presentations, everything. I like the idea of the storyline and everything else. So I'm intrigued by this. I'm going to be doing some R&D on this as we get into the month of February because I think there's some really cool stuff here on what they are and who what their game is and everything else. So if you haven't checked it out, you should. Like I said, I'll have more information out about it this week as I get deeper into it. But this is one of the things that I got interested about from branching out and reading about new stuff. What's up, Sean? Good morning. Someone said that I wasn't giving enough love to the card game that was listed in here. I'm gonna go back to that real quick. Again, apologies for the sniffles and snorts and everything else. This one right here, Fiasco. I just don't care about card games. It has nothing to do with whether or not this is a good game. It might be a fun game for some people. I don't do card games. I want dice, and that's what I want. I want dice. I don't do card games. I think the closest I've come to card games, it's not even a card game. It's just a um the Battlestar Galactica board game, which some people refer to as a tabletop game, but it's that board game that came out, I don't know, a few years ago. And when you play it, it's you and your friends having to find out who's a Cylon and who's not a Cylon, and basically somebody has to be pretending the whole time, because they're actually the Cylon, and they have to lie to everybody, and you have to figure out who the Cylon is by the end of the game. It's fun, but that one had cards, as I recall. Maybe I could be mistaken. Maybe it didn't have cards. I just don't get into board games that much. And things with cards, I'm just like, nah. I want dice. It's one of the reasons. If you haven't ever played Solasta, I'm a big fan of CRPGs where they take a tabletop role playing game and put it into a computer space or console. I'm finishing up Pillars of Eternity right now, and I'll get into Pillars of Eternity 2 next, and then we're waiting for Rogue Trader to come out, which is Warhammer. I've never done anything in the Warhammer space, but Owlcat Games is coming out with a Warhammer CRPG. I'm hugely interested in it. Anyway, Solasta got my attention last year because it was the best representation I've ever seen of a tabletop experience because they had all the dice rolls happening on screen. And it's all grid-based, turn-based gameplay, which is a turn-off for some people, but I like it. I like Baldur's Gate equally as well, where you don't have the turn-based, but you can pause it if you want to, but otherwise your characters, have an AI that they're reacting with. Um, so the idea of being able to see all the dice rolls on screen, and so you're walking past a pillar and there's something on the pillar, and your character's going to roll, a history or an arcane, whatever, to see if they can even decipher that in the first place. That stuff was so well done in Solasta. Even though it's an indie game, so the graphics are really good for the world, but the character models aren't the best. They have a limited number of voice options, a limited number of hair options. But if you can get past the cosmetic stuff, it is a fairly good looking game, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. The story can be a little generic in places through the main game. I have not played the expansion yet, the DLC. But even with all those little quirks, I still gave it like a 10 out of 10 because it's just an amazing, fun experience. And I was able to just fully immerse myself in that dice rolling thing where, you get to see all the dice rolls. Mark says I'm not really into miniatures. See, and that's a fair point. Like I'm not into card games. Other people aren't into miniatures. I love miniatures. I don't necessarily care to do the whole hexagon stuff when I'm playing live, like in the flesh. It's great for VTT because you're able to, it helps you in VTT space. Um, but I love miniatures because I like painting miniatures. So I've always played with miniatures, starting with like the old, the pewter miniatures in the 90s is what I grew up with, was the pewter miniatures. And speaking of which, actually my buddy, I wonder if I can show this without sharing his. Hang on a second. Let me pull up this text message he sent me on my birthday. I gotta make sure that it's not got any. I just want to show the photo, not the personal information. So give me a second while I look this up. This is hilarious because he sent me a picture on my birthday. Oh yeah, I could totally just share the picture. So I don't know how well the picture's gonna show. Probably not well at all, honestly. So even if you can't see this very well, I'll put this up here and hopefully you can see a little bit of it on the screen. Let me pull this over here so I can see this better. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. So you can kind of see it's a very dog-eared copy of the first edition, and on top of it is the player's handbook, or excuse me, DM Guide player's handbook stuff. Anyway, that dog-eared edition is the edition that I learned on when my buddy and I Ted played years and years and years ago. So he's like my D&D mentor, and I've known him for years. And he sent me this text message on my birthday, and he says, "My old Dungeon Master's Guide finally tapped out, and I thought of good times with you. Um, give my love to Chris and all your critters, and have a wonderful B-Day. Keep on rolling." That's a great dude, my buddy Ted. Um, I met Ted. Um, he actually wasn't the first person I ever played Dungeons and Dragons with. I began playing when I was about 15, I think. But I never the people I played with when I was a teenager were also into like the early I forget exactly when it was, but like the early Magic the Gathering, um, um, the earliest versions of Magic's Gathering. We were dabbling with that as well. But we only played like like maybe 6 or 8 sessions. So it got me enough to get going into it, but I really started playing when I met Ted. And Ted I met, this is a funny story. I got to tell this on screen. If you've been around my community long enough in Discord, you've seen me share some pictures out. But when the Phantom Menace came to theaters, I lived in Greeley, Colorado, and the nearest theater where they were showing it was in a place called Loveland, Colorado. And my buddy and I were like, I think 19 at the time. I was 19, he was 18, something like that. And we had already gone to the Star Wars Festival, which was the first Star Wars festival they had, which in Denver, Colorado, which was we lived, an hour and a half north. So we bought the weekend passes. I went and spent like $700 on Legos at the the Star Wars Festival. That's where I found out about EverQuest and went and got that. Um, but when the Phantom Menace came out, my buddy Morgan and I went, and we were in full costume. I was Qui-Gon Jinn, and he was Darth Maul. And I made, my mom made a robe for me. I made the rest of my outfit. I made a lightsaber. I literally have it to this day. My brother pulled it out of a box recently and was like, "This is crazy." Oh, small world, Sean. What's up? My sister actually still they live in Southview, um, in I can't remember the name of the town right now, but it's a small town south of Loveland. They were in Loveland for many years. But I spent like 12 years in Colorado. Greeley for 8, Steamboat Springs for 2, Fort Collins for 2. So small world. Um, there used to be a movie theater. I don't know if it's still there in Loveland. On the it would be the eastern side of I-25, on the south side of the road. No idea if it's still there, but that was the movie theater we used to go to all the time. Um, Maybe it was on the other side. I don't remember exactly where, but it was on. It was right there when you come into Loveland, coming from Greeley, and you come into Loveland. It was off there on the south side. And Phantom Menace came. We went full costume, and we went the night before because we wanted to be first in line. And my buddy and I bought tickets. No joke. I was such a huge Star Wars nerd back then. We bought tickets to every single showing, including the midnight showing. Um, that first night. So the midnight showing, and then we hung out all night, and then we were seeing every showing the next day. And we went there early thinking that we were going to be the only people there. There was already a dude there. He was backed up to the front of the movie theater. He had a freaking tent set out, a cooler, and he had a little barbecue thing going, and he was cooking brats. And he had this big freaking dog that was like half Malamute and half Golden Retriever, just smoking weed and hanging out. So it was like, here's another dude who's as passionate about Star Wars as we are. So we got to talking, found out that we shared a love for Star Wars, and that was how that relationship started. The first day when people started showing up for line, Ted and I were on the same team, and he had brought the Star Wars Trivial Pursuit, and it is still there. That's awesome, Sean. I also saw the 13th Warrior there like 5 times the day I went. I loved that movie theater. I used to go there a lot because it was way better than the movie theaters in Greeley at the time because the Greeley movie theaters were not that good. And yeah, anyway. Um, Played Trivial Pursuit. We went 12 hours the first day before anyone actually beat us, and we played dozens of people at Trivial Pursuit, and no one beat us. So that was how that friendship started, was because of a shared love of Star Wars. And then I remember he had just lost his job and was living on unemployment at the time, looking for new work. And he had like there was like a 3 month or 4 month span where I was in between contracts because I worked for the time. I was still working for my dad's construction company before I branched out on my own. And he was on a break between contracts, so we had like a 3 month gap um, before the next gig started. And so we were both at a position where we both had like 3 months of nothing to do, and so we started playing D&D, and it became an obsession like that. Like I was going over to his house at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would play until like 8 o'clock the next morning, all night. And we just lived on like Wendy's double stacks and Coca-Cola, and then I would just go home and sleep all day and go back and do it again. And that guy, in 1999 became a really good friend of mine, my tabletop mentor. And ultimately, he went up and moved to Seattle and ended up going and working for Microsoft for many, many, many. He's been there for many, many years. He's had a, you know, we've had different lives. Obviously, we grew apart because of the distance, but we've still, I think it's the only person in my life other than some high school friends who I stay in touch with on Facebook. This is the only person I've ever actually stayed in touch with over the years. We don't talk as frequently as we used to, but we still catch up every couple of years maybe. Him and his wife came to Cancun when Chris and I were still living there. This has been a few years ago now, so I haven't seen him in probably 5 or 6 years now. But they came to Cancun as we were on our way out of Cancun, and were there for like a week at an all-inclusive on the vacation. And we went and hung out with them. We went to Chichen Itza and went and had a lot of fun with them for a few days. And then just stay in touch with you. So it's great when I get like random messages from my buddy Ted on my birthday, because that poor first edition book of his has been through a lot. That is a well-loved, warned book. Absolutely. It is a cool pick, Mark. Um, old school cosplay. Yeah, that movie theater in Loveland. I is McGrath's still there, Sean? McGrath's Pizza as you're coming into town, because that's another place in Loveland that used to get a lot of my business. Because back in the day, and I think they still do, because we went with my sister, Berthoud, Colorado. Berthoud, that's where they live, which is just south of Loveland, as I recall. We went up and visited them. I think in 2019, Chris and I went up. It was the last time we went up, and we went and stayed for a few days with my sister and her husband, and we went up to Estes Park for a few days and went camping and stuff. But we went back up to McGrath's, because McGrath's Pizza, it used to just be called McGrath's Pizza. I don't know what it is anymore, but they used to have, and they still did in like 2019, I think is when we went, the best wood-fired pizzas I've had in a very long time, and like these amazing, steak seasoned fries and lots of IPAs on tap. But they used to have this Mediterranean, you know, wood-fired crunchy crust pizza that was just to die for. And a couple of the friends I met playing EverQuest, it's like I think the only people I ever met in real life who played EverQuest. They happened to be in my guild, and we were just talking one day, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah, we live in Boulder," and I was like, "What? You guys are like, in my backyard?" And we ended up starting to meet at McGrath's every Tuesday or every Wednesday. This is years ago. This is like 19, same time period, like 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in there. Um, Probably even into 2001, 2002. We used to go there every like Tuesday, Wednesday, and meet up and just hang out and get pizzas and beers and fries and stuff. It's still so. I mean, it's yeah, it's yeah. Hang on, I'm getting chat coming through on my Streamlabs, but not on my YouTube. Hang on, I gotta catch up on chat now. Mark says a school friend and his brother introduced me to basic D&D. Got Redminster box in '83. Nice. Sean says I would love to explore Central America. I don't believe so. If it's still there, I'll have to check. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with COVID and everything, they are. Yeah. If the food is still as good as it used to be, I mean, it's just a you know pizza and burgers and beer type place. But they used to have really good wood-fired pizzas. And a decent selection of IPAs. Ironically, we actually did the so I used to work in ceramic tile and natural stone, and my dad's company was pretty big in the Front Range for a while, and then I had my own small boutique. That's where I built my business as well along the Front Range, up until I sold everything off in 2007 when I retired and started traveling full time. But we actually did all the I don't know if they still use the same brewery if they've moved, but the original brewery for Fat Tire, um, for their brewing company. The first commercial building they ever built when they were transitioning from, you know, basement brewery into this thing We actually did all the travertine. We did all the natural stone in that building, and I'll never forget that because my dad not only got a fat paycheck, because he, pays well. They had my dad come back with his freaking dually F350, and they just loaded the back of his truck up with cases and cases and cases of like the Sunshine Wheat and Fat Tire and all the stuff that they sold at the time, which was like they only had like 3 or 4 types of beer back then, but they were good. They were good, small batch brews. But they just gave him dozens of cases of beer as a thank you on the way out the door, and that's all my dad drank for like 8 months was much Fat Tire Brewing Company stuff. We're way off tabletop today, everybody. Sorry, it is what it is. That's what happens when you hang out with me on a Sunday morning and we get rambling. But I do need to get going. I heard my niece is now awake and Chris is in the middle of making breakfast, so I got to go out and help with breakfast this morning because we're doing French toast and scrambled eggs and all sorts of other stuff. So, um, I think we'll continue to have these discussions on Sunday mornings as often as I can. As just continue to do. I've been having fun doing these tabletop discussions on Sunday mornings at 8. So if you like this, we will be live again next week. So thanks to those of you who hung out this morning. We had a lot of good conversations. We had Syrian was here, Mark was here, Honey Bun, Sean, so on and so forth. If I missed any names, I apologize. But thanks you guys for hanging out. If you're new here or if you're watching this after the fact, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Check out all the other playlists here on YouTube. We're doing a lot now. I'm doing a lot less gaming streaming right now. I'm only streaming games maybe 2 times a week, and I've been doing a lot of console stuff. I don't have any intention to do any MMORPGs this year. I know last year when I first got into doing YouTube full time, I was still heavy into MMORPGs, but I'm much preferring single players right now and CRPGs. There's a lot of great stuff that's coming out in the gaming space in terms of single player stuff, so you'll continue to see me cover news around those and play those games. But shows that I'm watching, watching Last of Us right now, catching up on season 2 Picard so that I can do a season 3 Picard when that starts next month. We've got um, Bad Batch. I'm doing Star Wars Bad Batch. Star Wars The Last Jedi, excuse me. We've got The Mandalorian season 3 coming up in March, so I'll be doing reviews of all those. More tabletop stuff, the Discovering Starfinder series. I got burps, sorry about that. I'm doing the Incarnate Map series right now, doing tutorials with Incarnate. We've got the Tabletop World Building series that's happening right now, so there's lots of fun stuff happening throughout the week, so hopefully you'll check out all the other things that I do here. Love the stories, says Mark. Great to catch up on your stream for once. Hey, man, glad you're here. Um, CRPGs are epic. Yeah, and there's some good ones coming out this year. If you're not following him, go check out Slandered Gaming here on YouTube as well. He does a lot of CRPGs, and he was just covering one yesterday that's like a sci-fi cyberpunk thing that I wasn't aware of. So go check his channel out because he has a new review up. And then at some point this year, I'd like to try the Solasta DLC, so I might actually do that. But right now, I'm finishing Pillars of Eternity. I'm gonna get into Pillars of Eternity 2. We got Rogue Trader coming up this year, so there are some good CRPGs, and of course in August, Baldur's Gate 3. And I am going to be looking for some people who want to do multiplayer on that, so stay tuned for that. I know my brother's going to join for some of that. Um, we'll see how that all works out, but we're going to try to do. I'm going to be doing a single player version of Baldur's Gate 3, and then I'm going to be doing the multiplayer version, and I'll stream one of those. I won't stream both. If I do anything with the other one, it'll be like individual episodes that I just cut down into like 30-minute chunks. But I will be streaming one of those playthroughs, whether it's the group adventure or the single player adventure. We'll find out yet, but that's later in the year. And I'm a huge fan of what's coming out with Starfield. So I'm going to start talking about Starfield more on my channel because I am really anticipating that product. Um, it's been a while since I've sunk my teeth into a good sci-fi game, and it looks like a hell of a lot of fun. So yeah, and then at some point we're going to be live streaming a new tabletop campaign here on my channel. Again, that remains to be seen what it is. We're trying to get schedule's ironed out. If that works, we might be doing something with Starfinder in March. Um, so yeah, Patreon stuff as well, because Chris is back doing artwork now for the next story arc for our modules, and I'm in the middle of writing that right now, and I got to get the book wrapped up at the end of the month. So, well, the novel, and then this point and click adventure game. Check all that stuff out. See you guys next week, or before that if you tune into the other live